All right, today we're going to talk about one of the most famous and, let's be honest, one of the weirdest love poems ever written. It's William Shakespeare's Sonnet 130, and it starts off in a way that makes you seriously wonder if he even likes the person he's talking about.
I mean, seriously, this is the central puzzle of the poem, right? For the first 12 lines, it sounds like Shakespeare's doing nothing but insulting the woman he's supposed to love. It makes you lean in and ask, what on earth is he doing?
So to figure this out, we're just going to walk through it, line by line. We'll look at all these seemingly negative comparisons he makes, starting with her physical appearance. And, spoiler alert, his descriptions are definitely not what you'd expect.
So right out of the gate, he takes one of the most classic poetic compliments and just throws it out the window. You see, in his day, every poet was comparing their lover's eyes to the bright, shining sun. And Shakespeare, he's like, nope, her eyes are nothing like that.
Then he moves on to her lips. He says that coral, this deep red stone that you find in the sea, is way more red than her lips are. He's literally saying a rock is redder than his girlfriend's lips. Ouch.
And he doesn't stop there. He goes on to say, if snow is white, then her skin is dun. Now, dun is this kind of dull, grayish-brown color. So he's setting up this ideal of pure white snow and then saying she's, well, not that. Not even close.
And then we get this one, which is maybe the most shocking of all. He says black wires grow on her head. Not soft flowing hair, but wires. It's such a harsh, almost industrial image. So we're not exactly feeling the love so far, are we?
All right, so let's see how this thing builds, because Shakespeare isn't just focused on how she looks. Oh no, he moves on to her other senses. How her breath smells, how her voice sounds. It gets even more interesting.
So he says he's seen these beautiful damask roses, famous for that gorgeous mix of red and white. But then he says he sees no such lovely colors in his mistress's cheeks. Once again, he holds up this classic symbol of beauty and says, yeah, that's not her.
Wow, this line is just brutal. He says that there are perfumes that are way more delightful than the breath that reeks from his mistress. He could have said her breath wasn't sweet, but he chose the word reeks. That's an incredibly direct and pretty unflattering word choice.
Okay, now this one is a little different. He says he loves to hear her speak. And you think, finally a compliment. But then he immediately follows it up by saying, look, I know that music has a far more pleasing sound. So even something he loves about her, he admits isn't perfect by some objective standard.
And this line is pure Shakespearean real talk. Other poets would claim their love just glides around like a goddess. Shakespeare basically says, listen, I've never seen a goddess walk. All I know is my mistress walks on the ground, like a regular human being. No magic, no floating, just walking.
Okay, so we've had 12 lines of what sounds like non-stop insults. But now, everything is about to change. The entire meaning of the poem pivots in the final 2 lines, what's called the couplet. This is where the big reveal happens.
So after all of that, after the wires for hair, the dull skin, the breath that reeks, he starts his final thought with 2 simple, powerful words. And yet.
And yet, by heaven, I think my love as rare as any she belied with false compare. And boom, there it is. The whole tone just shifts from critical to incredibly sincere. He's not insulting her. He's actually saying his love is just as special, just as valuable as any woman who has been lied about with phony, exaggerated comparisons.
So what does that actually mean? Well, this is where we get to the true genius of the poem. You see, it was never really about his mistress's flaws. It was about the flaws in all the other love poetry being written at the time.
The key to the whole thing is right there in that last line, false compare. Shakespeare is essentially calling out all the other poets. He's accusing them of this poetic crime of using the same old tired, over-the-top, and frankly, untrue cliches to describe the women they supposedly loved. So what he's really saying is this: my love is so real, so profound, that it doesn't need to be built on a pile of lies. I don't need to pretend her eyes are suns or her hair is gold. I love the real person. He thinks she's rare and special exactly as she is, without all the fake compliments.
Now, you might be thinking, okay, that's a pretty clever 400-year-old poem, but what does it have to do with me? Well, I'd argue its message is maybe even more relevant today than it was back then.
At its very core, this poem is a powerful celebration of authentic love over some impossible manufactured ideal. It's about loving people for who they actually are, flaws and all,
not for some airbrushed version of them. It's a declaration that real love doesn't need exaggeration to be rare and precious.
And that leaves us with a pretty big question, doesn't it? In our world, a world so full of social media filters and this constant pressure to be perfect, Shakespeare's poem really forces us to think, what does it truly mean to see and appreciate real beauty? And what is the value of a love that isn't, as he says, belied with false compare? Something to think about.